Your golf ball is the most technologically advanced, or it's not. Your golf ball is either the most consistent, or it's not. It's the most trusted, or it's not. The fact is, it's either Titleist, the best performing golf ball in the world, or it's not. Prove it for yourself. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. What will you play?
I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to Playing from the Tips and our 68th episode that happens to be our special KPMG Women's PGA Championship preview show presented by Golf Australia magazine. Jimmy Emanuel is my name, and I have the job of corralling our so-called experts as we look at not only the next Women's Major, but the Travellers Championship, LIV Golf Nashville, KLM Open and Kolon Korean Open. Joining me on all that and much more is firstly a man who clearly is good first up after a spell. 2 top 10s after a week off last week. Is Rod Morri the hottest tipster in golf?
Corey Connors, getting the job done. Solid from start to finish.
And a tie-up.
Never really in it. Never really out of it
at all.
And got himself into the Olympics. Magnificent Canadian performance. Quintessentially Canadian
It was very Canadian. Well and next, we will find out how good this expert is after a break, returning from Japan and offering up the insightful, "This is going to hurt for Rory" yesterday, Adrian Logue. That was huge Jimmy. Insight for you.
It wasn't Clayton-esque, was it?
No.
whose observation was brilliant.
An amazing
Clates for golf.org.au.
Written
just
by.
absolutely brilliant.
Is the golf Twitter hot take space almost as interesting as the golf itself sometimes? There was some brilliant stuff yesterday.
There was, all last week there was some really good stuff from a lot of different people.
It was a very entertaining week of golf.
Let's talk last week. Magnificent US Open. Who thought what about everything?
Well, everything. It was just everything, wasn't it? It's everything you could want in a golf tournament. The golf course stood up.
Was amazing.
I think that was my first note was Pinehurst. The course was
star of the show.
That rough must be the best rough for professional golf. I guess it's very divisive, but I think it truly delivered what you wanted with rough, where it's a chance, it's a roll of the dice, and
which is the Ogilvy thing, where you walk off the tee knowing you've missed the fairway, but you can't wait to get over the hill and just see what you might be.
It truly delivered that.
Yeah,
Bryson, as a spectator and as a player, you wanted to know. What
Bryson last night with Johnson Wagner when they went down and hit the bunker shot, and again some of the greatest television you'll ever see, but. Johnson Wagner said to him, with your second shot we had to punch it out. Your upright irons hurt you, didn't they? You couldn't get it around the back like I could when I went try it. He goes, no, but there was other times where the wiregrass was there and I'm so upright that I got an advantage that other guys wouldn't have. That's luck of the draw. That's what we want, really, isn't it?
That Johnson Wagner thing reminded me, I don't know whether you've ever seen the clip about the 90s. A guy won 25,000 on a scratchy or something. There was something about it that was interesting. So the news goes to do a story and they take him back to the newsagent to recreate it. He buys one and he wins 250,000 right there in front of the camera. Yeah. It's that kind of thing.
I remember that. He was so cool about it too.
Yeah, he was
I won again.
You're not going to believe this. I won it again. Yeah, that was me.
But Pinehurst, I think Bryson was everything we sort of maybe hoped he'd be the first time around. Mm-hmm. He's endearing himself. He's
interesting transition, isn't it?
Playing unbelievable golf. His golf game is so much more impressive than when he won the last US Open. It's so much more rounded.
I think I said it after the Masters. That final day of the Masters was really tough, and it was sort of thereabouts. Yeah. And I think I said on this podcast, anybody who was thereabouts that day is a proper golfer.
Yeah.
And he's become a proper golfer.
He is a proper golfer.
Actually, he was a proper golfer before he went on the silly distance chase thing, and he's come back to being the proper golfer. When he was here as an amateur in 2015, when we interviewed him down there at the time, he was amazing. I watched him on the range. He was extraordinary, the ability.
Could always hit the ball.
Well, the only questionable part of it maybe was his short game, and that's partly due to the equipment he uses. It's it's just tough to chip with long upright
being able
wedges.
To grind, though, and put yourself in the right mindset. And I love this thing, this Phil comparison that people are coming up with, because I think it's spot on. He's becoming likeable, just likeable in the way that Phil is likeable, where Phil with his thumbs up thing and relentlessly doing the thing until you be the thing. I feel is the theme for Bryson. Like the more he acts nice in public, the nicer he will actually become.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say he's all the way there yet.
No, it's a fascinating brain and person. I interviewed him one-on-one last year just by chance, and it was remarkable some of the things he said, and then he went to the range and did completely the opposite of what we just talked about. And it's just, Tony Wiebeck said yesterday, it's an amazing brain that probably never completely slows down and might be partially maddening, but is also why he's so good.
Absolutely.
Which is really good. And
I think you interviewed him one-on-one, Rod, didn't you, when he was out there?
He made us wait for no reason for about 40 minutes. And
it
when he came along. And, he was quite good when he finally sat down, but you could tell. It was... And you would have found the same. He's very playful about that. He's toying with you. There's something a bit condescending about it.
Same with Mickelson.
He's the star of the show, and he's going to put you in your place first. And I didn't enjoy the experience, even though he was incredibly interesting. It was exciting for him to come here because he'd won the CAAs, he'd won the US Amateur, and he was like this guy, and the one-length clubs and all that sort of stuff. And you'd read interviews, and his quotes were interesting. But in person, I didn't take to him.
No, it's very similar to Phil. Phil, for a post-round interview, will make you wait. He hangs out in score return and stretches and does all this stuff while he knows you're standing out there waiting for him. It's
and that's a
deliberate thing.
For all of those who are about to talk about how precious we are as journalists, that's all fine, but it's just making the observation that that's the way that was their behaviour. It doesn't matter whether I was upset about it or not, but that tells you something about people.
And speaking of talking to media, Rory was in the car and out the door by the time the putt had just about dropped.
He'll regret that. And he'll probably admit that because he does things that he regrets and then he does admit it later. And look, he's an easy target for his critics when he does this stuff, and he's an easy target for his critics when he later says, I wish I hadn't done that. I'm not one of his critics. This one really hurt. Really. More so even than the Cam Smith one because Cam Smith kind of outplayed him. This one was a should have for Rory.
Absolutely agree.
It wasn't a could have, it was a should have.
Fascinating seeing him in the scorer's hut there. And you can picture actually the scenario where he's ripped his shirt. That was probably, if there was no camera there, that shirt might have been in a bit of trouble. But
just that exhale, swallow, exhale, and just turn and walk.
Total exhaustion as well.
Walking up to the door, you didn't know if he was going to rip it off its hinges or just gently open it and close it. It was.
It could have gone either way. Well, you saw him when he took off in the car.
Yeah.
Put the boot into it for just a fraction of a second. Thought, hang on a minute. There's people everywhere around here. Just let's take it easy.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think he will regret it because he knows it's an entertainment thing, and other sports you have to front up when you lose. Yeah. There was a bit of that last week. Brooks didn't talk after the first round, said boring questions.
He's right about that.
That's definitely true.
Press conferences are brutal things.
But for the opposite, someone like Bryson doesn't even answer the question. He says what he wants to say, which makes it more interesting. Phil.
Which is Phil. Phil goes to the Masters every year, knowing what he wants to say. It doesn't matter what the first question is. Here's what he's talking about. And then he sets the agenda from there.
Yep. So. And the other touch where it's not official, but Jason Day and Minwoo Lee qualify for the Olympics, and it becomes official when they actually pick the team next week. So interesting stuff there.
Do Melbourne make tracksuits in green and gold?
They'll be in team uniforms.
It'll be an interesting look, wouldn't it?
And the only other big takeaway last week, Grace Kim.
Fantastic.
Went into the final round with a big lead, didn't have it, fought hard, made a playoff, but also a positive. Lilia Vu, last year's Player of the Year after withdrawing from the Chevron.
Really great to
comes
see.
back and wins.
LP, it was a shame in so many ways it was played opposite the US Open because it was a fabulous week on the LPGA. And Grace was extremely impressive in what she said after, which is pretty emotional, but I think that puts her in the every week. She's an Australian with a chance. There's Hannah, there's Minjee, there's Grace.
Correct.
She played in the final group with Hannah in LA as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
At Wilshire.
Yeah. And can we just note Rory's driver stinger?
Yeah, well, cool.
Highlight of the week. I'd not seen it before. What an extraordinary thing to see 4 days in
Siwoo Kim hit one as well that never got 6 foot off the ground, and just any time someone's doing that sort of stuff, I'm in.
I think
Michael maybe used that off the 18th.
He could hit 3 wood off the 18th.
Didn't Michael Kim say that he played with Siwoo once when he hit a bush 50 yards off the front of the tee because it was low. He did it so low.
That's a man.
Curtis Luck did
the same thing out.
Some Lamandra.
At the Australian, clipped the glass.
Some Lamandra in front of the fifth tee at the Australian.
All of that last week saw the 2 top 10s to Rod mentioned earlier, nothing else for us.
Who was the other?
You had Ataya Titicum.
Good on you, Ataya. Well
so that's 79 top 10s for the year, 13 wins, leading both statistics for Golf Preview podcasts produced by a magazine in the north of Sydney.
Well done.
Yeah, very good. On to this week, and rightfully so. KPMG Women's PGA Championship gets the lion's share of our attention. Played for the 69th consecutive year. So it was the LPGA Championship. It's been a few different things. Second time at Sahalee Country Club. Ronnie Yin defends her title that she won at Baltusrol last year. And Adrian Logue, you are our course man.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, it's being played this year at Sahalee. That's 1L, 2Es in Sahalee, which is a country club near Richmond in Washington.
Can you pronounce the name of the suburb it's actually in?
No.
No?
Can you spell it?
Samish, I haven't written it down.
Samamish or something
Samamish,
like that?
Yep. Thank you.
Sandwich, like what you used to have for lunch when you were a kid? Sandwich.
Home of, I believe, home course of Cam Davis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lives up that way. So, I think he plays out of there.
It's an odd place for professional golfer to
A lot
live,
of
isn't it?
Australians-
Cam Davis plays out of Sahalee.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a very bad course match for...
A lot of Australians used to go and play an amateur event there, and there's a connection up there. So a lot of the young Aussies would go and play up there.
I've got a few Australian connections.
Okay,
so, yeah,
let's go.
let's spoil that. Sahalee, first of all, means high heavenly ground in the Chinook language.
Nice.
But I wanted to check into this a little bit. So I referenced some topographical maps and found that Sahalee, the elevation
Cartography.
is actually, it's 500. How high is it? High heavenly ground. Let's just check into this. 590 feet, which is 180 metres in metric. Mm-hmm. So can you get a sense of how high that is?
Above sea level?
About a 7 iron
Above
for
sea
a
level.
modern touring professional?
Well, for reference, Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is reasonably familiar to us. In fact, Jimmy, I think you probably drove across the bridge this morning.
I sure did.
Well, that's 134 metres high.
From the road to the water or from the top of the arch?
To the top of the arch.
Top of the arch.
From the water.
Okay.
Now, sea levels, we're not going to get into sea level. That's
especially
that's
this
a whole
day and
thing.
age where they're changing. Maybe or maybe not. Who knows?
Anyway, so if that doesn't give you a true sense of it, then Jimmy, on the approach to the bridge, did you happen to look across to your left to the International Towers complex in Barangaroo?
I didn't know. I looked beyond that to the Piermont where my old man lives. Well, that help?
If you had, not really, but if you had, you would have seen KPMG's own office there in Tower 3 of the International Towers complex at Barangaroo. And can you guess how high their tower is, Jimmy?
150 metres?
It's 168.
Oh.
And so basically the same elevation as Sahalee, almost there.
Okay.
It's almost there. And KPMG's offices are on the 2 top floors. So the KPMG execs in Sydney are basically enjoying the Women's PGA Championship this week from their own high heavenly ground in their ivory tower. Have
you got anything about the actual golf course and how the golf will be played? Or?
Well, I just think we needed to establish the sense of place. It's high heavenly ground after all.
Okay.
So previously hosted the 1998 PGA Championship won by Vijay Singh and the 2016 KPMG Women's PGA Championship won by Brooke M. Henderson. Mm-hmm. The M stands for Mackenzie, as we recall from last week, or a couple of weeks ago. It first came into being in 1969. It was designed by Ted Robinson, who I don't know a lot about.
No, I mean,
didn't he design Sahalee?
Thanks.
That's about
right.
it.
It consists of 3 nines, the south, north and east. The south and the north are the ones that are used for the majors. The head pro, when the course was first established, is none other than Paul Runyon.
Oh, Little Poison.
Yes, correct. Yeah, Little Poison was his nickname.
First anchorer of a putter against his thigh.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I had to look at it just as a side note. 29-time winner on the PGA Tour, 4 Ryder Cups and 2 PGA Championships.
Yeah, at match play, beating Sam Snead, I think, in one who he
Correct.
was literally 70 yards behind off the tee.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. What
extraordinary player.
Yeah, real menace. The course truly became major worthy, though, when none other than the Open doctor, or the major doctor, Rhys Jones, took the helm of the redesign in the lead up to that 1998 PGA Championship. So it became truly sort of the course that it is now. And if it has one defining characteristic, it would be, Rod, I think.
Trees.
Indeed.
Tunnels of golf.
Tunnels and funnels.
There are a lot of trees on this golf course.
In fact, I would describe it as.
I've got a couple of quotes for you. Lee Jansen said of Sahalee, I think the best way to prepare for this course would have been to go to a big city like New York and maybe play down Fifth Avenue. With the trees being so large and so close to the fairway, you immediately see the only shot you could possibly hit is straight down the middle. Justin Leonard, another noted straight hitter. Everybody heard there was a lot of trees. I don't think anybody imagined this many. Colin Montgomery, another noted straight hitter. It's a lovely course, a beautiful place to play, and a beautiful test of golf. The trees get in the way too often. That's the only problem. So
this is the opposite of Pinehurst, isn't it? Which Jack Nicklaus described as the best tree-lined golf course without a single tree in play. So it'll be interesting to watch.
From above, it sure looks like you can only walk single file down the fairways. So I don't know if that'll be that much of a factor for the women who they hit a lot more fairways than the men's professional golfers.
They do, but a lot of the elite players currently in women's golf hit it further and hit it not as straight. It's moved that way.
It's really the start. My recollection of Sahalee from watching the two tournaments there was, as much as the trees down the fairways, yes, but these really tight shoots that you get out of it. If you're one who likes to move, Bubba Watson would struggle there terribly because you just can't start the ball more than 10 yards left or right at the front of the tee. So it's a real tunnel effect.
It's a real straight ball.
And really intimidating.
Not surprisingly, in 2016, it was Lydia Ko and Brooke M. Henderson.
Yes.
Who two of the straightest. Lydia Ko, I think, famously at the time, was probably as straight as anybody could hit a golf ball.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. On to the players. We've spoken about a few. Rod, you've got a bit of a list of some players to watch.
Well, yes. It's amazing how fast time passes, isn't it, really? In 2016, the top 10 was Brooke and Lydia, Ari Jatanagarn, Miriam Blee not playing, Seon Yu retired, Hee Young Parker's in the field this week, Amy Yang, Chella Choi not playing, Anna Nordquist, and Suo.
Yes.
Was tied for 8th. That was the top 10. So more turnover, I feel like, in women's golf than perhaps men's, it feels like. But it was just interesting to sort of look at that. And you'll talk about the Australians later, Jimmy, but Minjee finished tied 12th.
She did.
2016, so that was interesting. Look, great storyline this week would be Lexi. After a playoff appearance last week, she's clearly playing well. Your instinct would say, given what we've just discussed, this is not the course for her. Having said that, fairy tales come true occasionally. Why not? It'd be a great story if Lexi was to win it this week, given that she's announced her retirement. And like all players at this level, if she's playing well, it kind of doesn't matter whether the course suits you or not. Good players playing well play well on whatever course they're on that week, so it's not beyond. I don't think it'll happen. I think Brooke Henderson's a definite chance again this week. She will have some amazing memories. This was one of the great majors, Lydia Ko and Brooke Henderson in 2016. I remember recording a State of the Game episode with Jeff Ogilvy just afterwards. And he was watching that instead of the PGA Tour event because it was far more compelling golf.
Did Brooke chip in? It's a crucial point coming down.
She made an eagle on the 11th, if I recall. She putted a long putt from just off the green, across the green and hold it. And she stuck it close, if I recall, in the playoff on the first playoff hole and made birdie to win it. It was a real grabbed it by the throat and won it. It was kind
Lydia
of her coming in.
A major, Brooke had been talked about a lot, hadn't she? And then she
was Lydia after Lydia. She was the 12-year-old that qualified for this, and she turned pro very young, and she was going to be something. And this was really her arrival on the scene, and such an exciting player. And I've been a huge fan of her ever since. It was the first real exposure we had to her. So look, I don't think she's out of it necessarily. She's playing okay. Midfield last week. She hasn't had a great year. She's made 12 cuts in 13 starts, 3 top 10s, tied 3rd. But at this level again, it's only one swing. She might stand on that range, hit a swing, remember a swing thought from 2016 and go, oh, there it is there. And she'll be off to the races. So I like her chances this week. The usual suspects, well, Nelly is the usual suspect, isn't she?
Absolutely.
She leads in just about every imaginable category, except one that might be difficult. Well, yes, she's not the straightest driver. She's way down the driving accuracy stats. Having said that, those tight shoots off the tee might actually work to her advantage because there's less room to be going at it harder. You've got to – we'll see. You'd never, ever would you write Nelly Corder off in a tournament. Alison Corpuz leads the driving category. This is the stat that I looked at the most because if you get offline here, you can really get into trouble. You can hit trees, bounce around.
You hit a tree and you have 400 left in.
And you might have 2 chips to get out.
Correct, yeah.
You might have to chip it backwards to get around the trees and then you can chip it forwards. So crooked driving will really be punished. So Alison Corpuz leads in that category. She played well last week. She's only 2 shots out of that playoff, so she's going in with good sort of form. Ataya, who I tipped last week, she is right on the verge in this comeback from injury. She seems to have 3 to 3.5 good rounds each week, or she has. She was 4 under the front 9 and right around the lead on the Sunday just gone. Couldn't go any further forward on the back 9. In fact, went backwards by a shot. So
you really follow Ataya very
well. That can't last.
Like the anonymous person behind the Ataya tracker.
You'll be surprised to learn. What tournament do you think Ataya once played in?
The
Women's New South Wales Open at Dubbo.
Oh, there you go.
I followed her in her final round, and she is a genuinely extraordinary talent. I don't think that 3.5 good rounds thing can last. The bookies agree with me. She's second on the line of betting this week behind Nelly Corder, and it's quite a gap to those who are then at the next longest odds. So they see something too. Another one of my favourites, Ayaka Furuwe. This course has got to be right up her alley, doesn't it? Right? She's fourth in the driving stats and just a relentless competitor. She just keeps plodding along and getting it done. This would be the kind of major that, she might just bob up and win. Lilia Vu, of course, who you mentioned. That's an extraordinary performance to come back.
Great to see her back.
First tournament back.
Yeah.
That's quite extraordinary. So yes, definitely should be with a chance to win. Some of the sort of I think they're kind of the favourite sort of pools. You could pick just about any player you like. Here's some interesting ones, I think. Charlie Hull.
Yes.
Longer shot for the same reasons as Nelly. She's a bit wilder off the tee and that sort of thing. However, she looks happy this year. The U.S. Women's Open, she was fantastic. She was a bit of a Bryson, actually. She got caught smoking in front of the crowds and that went viral. But she handled it beautifully. It didn't annoy her. She enjoyed the attention. She's playing well and she's capable of absolutely anything. And Leona Maguire is one that might just – she's not playing her best golf. But this sort of course will probably suit her as well. I put her in that category of she's it sounds like a criticism. It's not. A plotter. She just hits fairways, hits greens, and she'll make her share of putts weeks when she wins, and I think she could do well this week. Hannah Minjee and Grace, as I said, I think probably 3 automatic Australians, but Jimmy will talk more about that. It's between Attire and
we're going straight to picks.
Yeah, we're going straight to picks, and then we'll go with an outside pick as well. Yeah.
Do you want me to wait for that?
I want your winner.
Okay. It's between Attire and Ayaka Furuwe, but I'm going to give Ayaka the nod. I feel like it might be her time.
Okay. Was that a disappointed groan?
You picked Ayaka Furuwe?
Ayaka Furuwe.
Okay, I'll go with Attire and you can have Ayaka.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm
generous.
That is very generous.
You could if it was a playoff, wouldn't it?
You're a gentleman, Rod.
You are a gentleman. I'm going to go with Charlie Hull.
Yeah, good call.
She was 16th here in 2016.
Yes, that's right.
As a very young player. And she's one of these ones that you think, she comes from the UK, she must prefer playing links golf. Not true at all.
No, not
She's built for actually tree line golf. This is narrow. It's going to test her, but I think she'll hit a lot of less than drivers off tees. And we've spoken about her before, where she needs to have her brain switched on and ticking over. She's going to have that on every tee. She's going to have to be focused in, and I think
she's a good reaction golfer.
Yes,
correct.
Agreed.
No,
I think she
look and react.
A lot of Bryson about her.
Yeah,
exactly right. I think that's a great comparison.
Agreed.
All right. Well, let's have a look at someone who's an outsider. I'll lead off the batting here because I can see you typing away there. I'm going to go with Jenny Shin. So
okay, all right.
Top.
We've cracked the low code.
No. No, I thought we prosecuted this whole thing with Greeny.
Yeah, but she was top 10 2 weeks ago. She also was top 10
She's certainly
at this
reliable
event
for a top
last
10,
year.
but I don't think you're going to get a win out of it.
Yeah, but that's what an outsider is. Okay. And she's a fascinating Twitter follow.
She is.
She was
indeed.
She was right into the whole Bryson thing last week. Mm-hmm. So I feel like she's in one of these things where she's in love with golf right now, and that's going to go well. When you see some of the other stuff and you go, she doesn't like golf right now, you can probably put the line through her. But I think she's a big chance.
Okay,
Rod?
Maya Stark.
Nice.
Can do anything.
Almost not an outsider, but
we don't have a definition for it here.
No.
And as commissioner, I rubber stamp that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because this is the sort of course, she could shoot 80-80 here, or she could shoot 65-65. Yeah. She's that kind of talent. This course will either drive her mad with frustration, or for some reason it'll click and she'll like the look of it, and that'll dictate
she could score 65, 80-80.
That's quite possible too. I don't see that, but yes, she's
a Women's New South Wales Open winner at Coolangatta Tweed Heads.
Indeed. Wasn't in the field in Dubbo, so I don't have any sort of upfront, obvious front row seat look at her, but she was. And that was a really impressive performance with a caddy on the bag who, from memory, didn't know anything about golf. Might have been from the family she was staying with. Just carried the bag.
Yep.
And look, I remember thinking this about Maya a bunch of times, which you see a lot with young players. Imagine what a good professional caddy could do for this player.
Yeah.
You see some of the decisions made and whatnot. Yep. It's the last piece of the puzzle if you're really going to be an elite professional. I don't know who's caddying for Maya, but
let's assume she's got a good caddy.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. That's perhaps just a little more settled in their judgments at various times in tournaments with when the adrenaline gets
outsider.
Megan Kang.
Yeah,
Nice.
One of America's top players and actually performs well at majors.
Yep.
And
Great personality, good for the game.
Might be in the American Olympic team, even alongside Nelly. Who would be a second American player? I don't know.
That's not the women's doesn't get finished until the end of this week.
Right. And they'll have 4 as well, won't they?
Yeah,
They will.
Will Australia's a good chance of getting 4?
No.
No?
Too only.
No.
Okay.
It would. I don't even think if
Grace-
Gabby or Grace were to win, I don't think they would get a third spot.
Because you've got to be in top 20 in the world to have more than 2.
Correct. I
So
believe
you can have
so.
4 if they're all inside the top 20 in the world rankings, which is why the Korean women's Olympic team has been the single most competitive team to qualify for the last 2 Olympics.
And Japan.
I'll be honest, I've tried to wrap my head around the Olympic qualification numerous times, and Karen Lunn, who's on the IGF committee, has tried to explain it to me multiple times over dinner, and I still can't get it. So
See, there's your mistake. Stop doing it over dinner. Have a crack at it during the day when there's
Again,
no wine on the table.
mentioned earlier, Tony Wiebeck, who's going to be the media liaison officer for Australian golf at the Olympics, he would know, but he's not here.
He'd certainly be able to pretend to know.
Oh,
Given
much
that
better
nobody
than me.
understands it, who's going to argue with it? It's like the world golf ranking.
Exactly.
If Nosferatu says it, then it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody questions it.
Nosferatu, his name would be. Yes.
Nosferatu sounds like some sort of like a burrowing animal.
Nosferatu is the name of Dracula's dog or something like that.
It might be, but it was the movie. It was one of the first Dracula movies.
Yeah, okay.
Titleist is the number 1 ball in golf. Yes, being number 1 is a number, and more players trust the Pro V1 or Pro V1X than all other golf balls combined. But being number 1 is more than a number. It's a mindset. It's a relentless mission to design and manufacture the best performing golf balls in the game, so you can chase whatever your number 1 is. Titleist, the number 1 ball in golf.
There are 8 Aussies in the field here. 2019 champion Hannah Green, Minjee Lee, Grace Kim, Gabby Ruffles, Steph Kiriakou, Hira Naveed, Robin Choi and Sarah Kemp. On form throughout 2024, Hannah is the standout. 2 wins, a runner-up, heading for another Olympic start. Driving accuracy is the one question around Hannah. She rates in the top 10 for greens in regulation and putts per green in regulation, which suggests why she's winning golf tournaments, because hitting greens and then making putts is pretty good. But she's got to get there this week. After almost winning another U.S. Women's Open trophy, Minjee missed the cut last week, which was very surprising, but kind of where her year's
Picked
been.
her, I think, didn't you?
Maybe. I think so. But it's a natural sort of thing for Minjee at the moment.
Things we don't talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought you said last week it was a natural thing for her to bounce back. So I don't know. I'm just
I didn't say when.
No, I didn't say when.
okay.
But she was T12, as we mentioned, in 2016 here. Not the straightest of drivers as well, but one of the best ball strikers in world golf. So, Grace Kim, though,
very straight.
naturally after last week, but the straightest hitter I reckon I've ever covered in golf. She's gotten a bit stronger, so it goes a little bit more offline occasionally, but when she wants to, she doesn't miss fairways. So she should be a real fit here. And Gabby Ruffles just plays so well at the majors, ball striker, all that sort of stuff. So
proper player.
There's a lot of good quality stuff there. So let's get a top Australian from everybody.
I'm Grace Kim.
Yep, same.
I'm with Hannah because she loves this part of the world. Her first 2 victories came up in this part of the world where it can be quite cool. Yeah. Brooke Henderson, the same. I think she won in Portland, was her second. And I think they like the conditions up around this part of the world. And look, she wants a second major as badly as anybody wants a major because and we've seen this year. She's really determined. I think she'll make whatever adjustments required to find fairways, and I think she'll be right there at the end.
I think it's one of those ones where she's having that year where she knows she needs to cash in while she's playing so good.
Yeah. I don't think she intends to play forever.
No.
And so she wants to get it done so that she can say, right, now I'm comfortable with what I've done. I can give the game away.
Yep.
I don't need it immediately, but yes.
Yeah. As mentioned at the top, there's plenty of other golf on as well, including, quite remarkably again, a signature event on the PGA Tour and the Travellers Championship. Rod, you're going to give us a little run over of that.
What is this madness? It is insane what they've done. Apart from anything else, just the rudeness of putting on a signature event opposite a women's major. It's disgusting behaviour.
Clearly it is. This is one of those ones where it's giving back to a long-term sponsor who's done the right thing in Travellers. This has always been the week after the US Open. They've always got a good field by whatever means they've attracted players. But we're now 3 weeks in a row where they're expecting the top players to front because you had Memorial, US Open this. Exactly as you say, it's against a women's major. There's a LIV Golf event on as well. It's the ecosystem of scheduling that we just don't need.
Well, here's the stupidity of it. This whole notion of getting the best players to play against each other more often and then give them a schedule where they can't play their best golf. Yeah. How good's Scotty Scheffler going to be this week? In all honesty, if Rory had teed up, what would have been the point this week? You know, these guys have been battered by the US Open. So I don't understand it. You'd hope that it's only this year and that there'll be something more sensible next year. But in the list of criticisms to be made at the PGA Tour, this one is right up there. This is the old Greater Hartford Open known as the Travellers. I didn't realise this. It's the second most well-attended event on the schedule after the Phoenix.
Yeah.
And a completely different vibe to Phoenix, you'd have to say. They build that beach here, don't they, on opposite the water on the 18th, where they have all the things. So, look, it's obviously a great event for the local area. It's obviously one of the things. TPC River Highlands is the course. It was the third course in the TPC network way back in the 80s and 90s. The third. It's now over 30 courses in the TPC. This one was the third. It used to be Edgewood Country Club. They bought it and turned it into TPC Connecticut, then later a major redesign. Now TPC River Highlands is quite the democratic venue. I don't know whether anybody else remembers this, but 2010, Bubba Watson won a playoff against Scott Verplank and Corey Pavin.
Nice.
Could you find two players at more opposite ends of the golf spectrum than Corey Pavin and Bubba Watson, although both love to shape the ball, interestingly enough.
And someone right in the middle like Scott Verplank.
Scott Verplank, who just,
nice.
Exactly. So, look, it's a pretty democratic place. It does tend to favour long hitters, but I think you can say that about golf in general in this modern era because, let's be honest, everyone's a long hitter these days. There's been some great winners, great moments here. This is where, I don't know whether people remember this, Spieth beat Daniel Berger in a playoff here when he holed out of the bunker. And that's where the term was born. That's just Jordan doing Jordan things. It was Daniel Berger after that saying, listen, he's been doing this to us since we were kids. He's been doing that. That's just Jordan doing
chest
Jordan
bump
things.
with
The chest
Michael
bump
Grella
was awesome.
The chest bump. One of the great. And that was right at peak Spieth too, that 2016. So in terms of the course, probably best known for its 17th hole, which wraps around the lake there. It's a sort of an interesting one.
Oh, a whole wrapping around a lake at a TPC.
It's at a TPC. Almost unheard of. Just extraordinary.
Does it have bunkers on the outside of the hole as well?
Funny you should say that. It actually doesn't. But it wouldn't surprise if there was some there next year. It's that kind of thing. Look, as we talked about, after the beating the players took last week, it's hard to know at Pinehurst. It's hard to know what's perhaps going to happen. Most of the big names will be there, minus Rory, who's withdrawn this morning for the next couple of weeks. Possibly understandably, possibly not. There's also the big name sponsor invites. Webb Simpson and Adam Scott both get another run at a signature event.
Yes.
How can they keep getting away with that? I mean, that is just why is nobody blown up with that?
Adam Scott's like a genuine draw card, but and just outside qualifying for this stuff anyway. But Webb Simpson, to be honest, what the hell? How?
Part of me surprised Adam keeps saying yes. He's the sort, as he said with the Olympics, I don't agree with the golf being in the Olympics, therefore I'm making myself under. He's the only one who stood his ground. They all claimed the Zika virus when they didn't want to play, and he didn't.
Kind of backs himself to perform well.
Yeah.
Like he knows he's a genuine contender still.
But one after the other, it's like, come on, Adam.
I think the realisation is that you have to play these events if you want to get into the right category for the next year to automatically qualify. And the only way to do it is to play these
events. That's right. I don't think he'd be very happy about having to keep taking these events.
No.
You're right. I think the bigger goal is to set up trying for next year to keep, he's at that stage of his career. He's got to keep it going now.
Yeah, correct.
Anyway, no idea who'll contend, obviously, but I like Xander Schauffele this week because the first two rounds he played awfully and scored well, which is really impressive stuff. Didn't have a great weekend.
He was sort of
but
thereabouts.
This week for Xander is going to be like, imagine if you'd been walking around for a week with a pebble in your shoe.
Yep.
And then you pop that off and you put on the old comfy pair of slippers and it's like, oh, this is fantastic. I think that's what it's going to be like for this week.
Because the course fits better.
The course is going to fit. It'll be more of a birdie fest. It'll be much more. Xander Schauffele is your quintessential PGA Tour player and this is your quintessential PGA Tour venue.
Yep.
And I think he'll have learnt some things last week, having really done it tough at Pinehurst, and this will just feel like, oh, this is so easy.
Yep.
So I'll go with Xander Schauffele.
Nice.
He'll probably now miss the cut.
Logue?
Well, I guess for similar sort of rationale, I'm going with Tony Finau, who performed really well last week on a course where you're not sure how Tony Finau is going to perform. Turned out it's not a bad fit for him. But we know for sure this sort of TPC setup is very good for Tony Finau. So
2 bad holes really for Tony Finau this week. Same as Ludwig. 2 triples, and that was the end of them.
Yeah,
and that's
obviously playing well. So
I'm also going with Tony Finau. That was the most obvious thing. I looked at a few others, but
did you look at the power rankings on PGA Tour?
No, I didn't.
Because they had him at like 10th or something. I couldn't, or 13th out of the 15 power rankings or something. I didn't get that at all.
If you were a conspiracy,
is that who does that?
If you were a conspiracy theorist, you'd say, well, maybe he's going to sign with LIV, and they've heard, and that's why they've put him down the power rankings. That's how that works.
Please.
Is that right? You're just making
That's just making.
But you can't do that.
But the fact that you just went, oh, why is that? It tells you everything you need to know about current information system.
Can we just bring up one other last thing from last week and the Twitter takes of someone naming the Ludwig Aubert fan group the Luddites? Very big fan of that.
Okay.
I really can get around that.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's okay, but it's not genius. It doesn't make you go, oh, wow.
Ludwig.
No. Well, you're not a Luddite, clearly.
Yeah.
Well, you are a Luddite, but anyway.
By the way,
if you pronounce it Luddite, maybe.
Hasn't Ludwig escaped all of the scrutiny
given
given what happened with Rory and Bryson? Because if that had been a different kind of finish, there'd have been a lot of people on Ludwig's case. Because we forget he had the chance to win at Cran-Sassier very early in his career. And if you remember, he shot 78 or 79 in the last round when he had the lead. Yeah. And he was the next big thing. He's gone on to erase that, and he's a much better player. But this might have been one of those moments for him had it not unfolded the way it did.
Yeah, agreed. Also in action, LIV Golf, two-time U.S. Open champion Bryson as the headliner. This time they go to Nashville, Tennessee, and The Grove, designed by guess who?
Ted Robinson.
Greg Norman.
That's it, Greg Norman.
Okay.
Yeah. Used to be a Corn Ferry Tour host. This is not Pinehurst. This is much more in the TPC River Highlands kind of thing. Yeah. And I'll give you their description from their website.
Crooked Cat?
Is it shades better than Crooked?
No, Crooked Cat. Come on.
The Grove's 18-hole par 72 course is the pride of our beautiful community. The host of 2022.
Who wrote this? Like the head of the community.
On the website. The Grove has gained a reputation as one of the best private courses in all of Middle Tennessee.
Wow.
Is that like this is the best podcast
in all of
it? It's like our stats, yeah. The golf course is maintained in tournament condition on a daily basis, with the fairways kept at tour heights, greens rolling at U.S. Open speeds, and the bunkers identical to those at the Tour Championship. The golf experience at the Grove is unparalleled in Nashville.
Does it have anything to recommend it?
Fairways kept at tour heights. That you just lost me.
Yeah.
Why just... If anything, to do with making it like a tour golf course is a benchmark.
The thing is, none of us can question any of those claims. The only way we could correct that is if we get Ned Michaels on the phone, who actually hails from that area, and go, tell us about it. But anyway, green grass, water hazards, white sand bunkers, you know the sort of stuff. It's all the normal LIV golfers. Sergio, arguably one of the ones to watch after his performance last week. He's been good all year, really. Don't know if John Rahm's going to be there. I doubt it after he withdrew from the US Open with an infection in his foot. So we'll wait and see.
When he comes back, he will be like the raging bull we've seen. Missing that US Open might have been, that would almost, in a different way, almost as tough for him as what happened to Rory.
Or he won't be.
Or he may be like,
he might be completely spent.
Maybe he didn't watch any of it. Just like, I can't be bothered.
Doesn't strike me as the kind who would go home and watch the golf. No. So all the usual sort of people. There's a few backing up from last week. There was a few impressive performances, but a lot who come in fresh. It's another one where it's interesting how Bryson follows, all of that high of winning a major and then goes and tees it up again. It's an exhausting thing, and then you go and play here. They at least get an extra day off. There probably won't be as much intense practice in the lead up to it, but it'd be interesting to see. And I think Tyrrell Hatton's going to win.
Okay.
He was pretty good last week at a golf course that would drive him up the wall.
But he plays those courses well for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I don't think you could get an answer out of him as to why.
No, he's got no idea. Yeah. I loved his comparison. Well, everyone else knows how I feel this week because it's driving everyone mad. Yeah, so they've got a taste of what it's like playing golf with
also,
me.
Some wonderful quote work around his fines and getting the media guys together.
Tyrrell Corporation.
Yes. A winner from everyone else?
Bryson will do it again. He's one of that rare type of golfer who would go back-to-back. He will be energised by the USA. He won't come down at all, I don't think, this week. He'll still be on a high, and he'll kick him again.
Energy is the word for him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Boy, he had a lot of energy carrying that trophy around after the win.
Remarkable.
Just like deep into the night, like powered by chocolate milk or something.
And he'll still be running on that.
Yeah.
Come Friday this week when he tees it back up.
Absolutely remarkable. Anyway, I like to think of myself as a leader in tipping, and you guys sort of follow. But this time, just to show a bit of humility, you guys picked Laurie Cantor to win something recently, and was it you?
I think I might have picked him.
And he won.
I was as surprised as he was.
And
we were both
We
shocked.
both did.
Right. There you go. So I'm going to follow, and I'll see how that feels this week. I'm picking Laurie Cantor.
Well, he's a reserve. So he's actually in the field at the KLM Open on the DP World Tour.
For the KLM Open.
Yeah, no. Any thoughts on Liv? You got the wrong 3-letter tournament there, did you?
I don't think he's the first reserve, so I don't think he'll be the one to fill John Rahm's place because Ben Campbell did that at the last event when he withdrew. So
Can he be a reserve?
it says it on his
There
name
are
on the
literally
on the
48
list.
players to choose from, and you picked the 49th.
You go.
It's extraordinary.
You go to the website. Everybody on there should be playing. That's how it works, isn't it?
They've got a little mark that says reserve in black.
I can see that now.
Yeah.
Some of the other tours do that too.
Yeah,
And
they
done,
have a red line.
and have done for like 100 years.
Have you got another pick outside of someone who's not playing?
Let's keep going.
Okay. Outstanding. Let's move along to a national open next. Rod, tell us about the Kolon Korean Open presented by Lord on the Asian Tour, or Logue?
The
Open
de Korea.
Open to Korea. Open
Just
to
for any
Kolon
French people
Korea.
listening.
Elord or
So they know what we're talking about.
Elord or Elord?
Lord, I always said it.
I don't know. Anyway.
Golf equipment company?
Well, funnily enough, we'll come to that in a moment with Sponsor Watch. This is actually a tournament with a great history.
It is.
It's been around since 1955. Who won the first 3 iterations of the Korean Open? Yes, that's right.
Thompson?
Orville Moody.
Orville Moody. Okay.
3 in a row. The hat trick.
The first long putter user.
The first long putter user, the 1960-something U.S. Open champion,
Correct.
if I'm not mistaken. They reckon he was one of the great ball strikers of all time, but just horrendous with the
As
putter.
bad a putter as there's probably ever been in the
As
elite.
bad as
Yeah.
Langer. If you ever heard Clates talk about Langer when he had the yips, he's like, if you haven't seen genuine yips, it's horrendous to see.
Shout out to a guy I used to caddy for, Dave Saunders, who's in that category as well.
Okay.
From an era, though, where there were great names in golf. Orville Moody.
Orville Moody's a magnificent name.
Fabulous name.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Terrific.
Dow Finsterwald.
Yeah.
Dow Finsterwald.
I'm going to get into some with our next event too, just quietly, so let's keep going.
So, Kolon, a Korean chemical and textiles manufacturer. They own Elord or Elord, which is a clothing brand described by one internet analyst as, quote, it's considered the Ashworth of Korean golf. Close quote. Reckons you see it everywhere in Korea. It's the big brand.
Okay.
There you go. 2 Opens qualifying spots on the line this week here, which will certainly help with the field, and quite a few Australians are teeing up, I suspect, partly because of that. Played at Woojong Hills Country Club, built by Perry Dye, son of Pete. It's what you might expect if you tried to close your eyes and picture a golf course in this part of the world. And it does, of course, have an island green at the 13th, which is 220 yards long, so there's a bit of sport there.
Easy game.
Yeah, the winning score only occasionally reaches double digits under par. In fact, the scoring is really quite wild when you look through the list. -4 right through to -16 wins this. I don't know what makes the difference, whether it's wind but really, really big changes in sort of scores. Ricky Fowler's first professional win came here. Rory McIlroy played here a bunch of times early in his career, never won it. John Daly, Vijay Singh have both won here. I guess it's a bit like the Australian Open here. They've had big-name players appear for appearance fees over the years. So players to watch this week. Well, there's a lot of Korean players in this field because it's obviously co-sanctioned, but I'll stick with some of the names we know. Australians, Kevin Lee, who's a past winner, Brendan Jones, Trav Smythe, Kevin Yuan, Jack Thompson, Todd Sinnott, Won June Lee, and I'm going to tip Brendan Jones because he's still got it, and there's another spot.
Nice. The fact that it upset Logue is really why I enjoyed it.
Well, I picked Brendan Jones.
Good. So
that's good.
finally, I seem to be coming around into the winning formula.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good tip.
He's got surprises left in him, BJ, and this might be one of them.
Yeah.
I spoke to him a couple of times before he went over this year and just seemed really energised by it all. And he's still so impressive in every part.
Yeah. I reckon COVID might have really done that for him. He had a year completely away from it. Did not touch a golf club. Yeah, he was out gardening with it. Shovels and mattocks and lifting heavy stuff. And it might have just a year away really refreshed him.
Probably good workout
and
for
good
golf.
physical, exactly.
And I think also getting away from playing Japan full-time where he'd been to all the events, he'd been to all the golf courses, it was the same thing every single time. Going and playing a new tour, new events is a good thing for a guy like him. I'm going to go with Bio Kim
Yep. Why wouldn't you?
Because Koreans just win this.
One of my favourites.
He is one of your favourites, I know. Finally, we're going to go to the DP World Tour, KLM Open, Dutch Open, or
The Open, the Netherlands.
yeah.
Does anybody else just not hear KLF, that 90s hip hop or whatever it was sort of thing? KLF is going to rock you. Remember that?
Yeah.
Every time I see the KLM Open, I think of that.
Well, let me tell you, KLM is actually
the airline. But
is Royal Dutch Airlines.
Yeah, I know that.
And it is the historic Dutch Open that's had a few different names, won by the likes of, and as I mentioned, some good names, Flory van Donk,
Yes.
one of the greatest names in golf.
One of the great climbers of the
name.
Yeah, Roberto Di Vincenzo,
very
Jack
good.
Newton, Seve, Graham Marsh, Payne Stewart, Bernhard Langer, Colin Montgomery. Just
Wow.
like the list is actually remarkable.
Fifth major.
I think
fifth major material.
Sergio won it a few years ago. Westwood. There's all sorts of names. Ian Woosnam designed the International Amsterdam. Is the host for the second time. Biggest thing taken away from the internet: planes fly low overhead because there's an airport next to it. So the reviews are often, "I like quiet golf courses and it's noisy." That's all you seem to.
Very
get.
much to do with the sponsor. KLM,
Correct.
right next door.
Yeah, exactly right. But
A little bit like the Lakes and East Lakes here in Sydney where you do get
I
the
think
low
it's even
flying.
closer
than that.
I think
I think they're
it's
closer
like,
than that, but if you've played the Lakes or East Lakes when the planes go over, you'll get some sense.
I think it's a bit like, if there's a plane going, you might need to flight down your pitching wedge kind of stuff. Another one where I've gone to their website, and the daring concept of creating a very challenging, beautiful, and very well-maintained golf course with the International in a metropolitan environment is, if we say so ourselves, more than successful.
Okay.
So they got raps on themselves.
Could have done with
I saw
I
saw a photo of a lot of fake mounds.
Yeah,
was my
very
impression.
undulating, but it's very created, basically.
That's not the Netherlands, is it?
Fake mounds to the International are what trees are to Sahalee. That's my
bit of undulation. There's a bit of sort of tussocky grass. It's all very created, but it looks kind of interesting. It's a pretty strong European Tour field. Danny Willett would be the biggest name, but you've got the likes of Rasmus Højgaard, who Rod will no doubt be tipping. Laurie Cantor is in the field here, Logue. Tom McKibben.
You sure? Because I don't want to back him.
Very impressive live win.
I don't want to back him until he's like definitely
A stack of other tour winners. And then we got more Australians in this field than we're used to on this tour at the moment. You got David Micheluzzi, Hayden Barron, Tom Powerhoran and Andrew Martin all in the field. So that category they get here is coming in because there's not as many of the regulars because they're all recovering after last week. So let's get some tips. And Logue, can I put you in for Laurie Cantor?
No.
Okay.
I'm snake bitten.
He hasn't got 4 rounds in him.
Also, I can see him backing up for a live win, but not for a 2 DP World Tour.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's understandable.
He's no like Nelly Korda.
He's no Nelly
He's no
Korda.
Nelly Korda. He's not going to start winning repeats on the same tour. Anyway, Matt Wallace.
Nice.
Bit of a forgotten man in European golf.
I've bypassed the Højgaard. I saw the Højgaard in the field, and I, of course, was tempted because that's been my habit. But I've gone with Jordan Gumberg, partly because he won in South Africa earlier this year, but partly because he's attached to Adios Golf Club, and that intrigued me, so I looked it up. And Adios Golf Club is in Coconut Creek, Florida, and it's been his second home since he was a little kid.
Okay.
So go Adios Golf Club.
How close is it to Crooked Cat?
I didn't see. I'm going to have to look that up. I'll come back to you next week.
I'm going to go.
Does it have native Floridian heather?
No, it's a 6,950-yard course, and it's a premier golf course in South Florida, and a course Gumberg learned to play on.
Okay. I'm going to go with Richard Mansell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he's a good, solid all-round player. It feels like it's going to suit. It's just everything.
He's no Ewan Ferguson.
But he's a big playing guy, I believe. So he's going to be, yeah.
Right.
He won't be distracted, you
That's
know?
completely made up. I have no idea if he's into playing.
But boring his playing partners. Oh, look at the 747
I'll
Max.
take out all the defamation this week before we send out the show.
That's right.
Oh, that's the Airbus A380 there.
Yeah.
So,
If you were a playing guy, this would be your
Scott Hender's a bit of a playing guy. He'd be in that conversation. He knows all the playing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that'll do us for this week and episode 68. Rod, I want to ask, will your hot streak continue?
Oh, I have no idea. There's so much golf this week. Surely with 5 tournaments, you've got to get something, don't you?
your top 10 streak.
How disappointed do you think, Logue, Ewan will be that he covered for you last week, filled your gap, and then he's organised dinner this week and you're not lobbing up?
Well, after
very marginal disappointment at best.
I think that's probably right.
Had he performed better last week, might have fronted up.
Yeah, well, he was
Victor
terrible.
Perez.
He was awful.
Yeah.
So
you were looking great through 2 rounds with Thomas Dietrich. You're outside.
Yeah, I was ready to be.
Big call with the tweet at that
I went
point.
public with it because I knew he wasn't going to win, so I needed to get the credit for it at the time, and then
sadly, I Corey Connors you.
You did, indeed. You can
Dietrich went past him. And then he fell back past him on the other way back.
You can, of course, follow along with all of this action on the Golf Australia magazine website, golfaustralia.com.au, and get out and pick up a copy of the July issue of the magazine that is on sale now. Jason Day's on the cover talking Royal Troon, the Open. Editor James Smith previews this week's KPMG Women's PGA. Karen Harding writes on Empower Golf, including the great James Gribble. Not friend of the show, but friend of the studio, because he's been on another podcast recorded here. Yeah. So there you go. I don't want to say friend of the show. I want to say friend of the studio.
Sure.
And I also have a one-on-one interview with Kolon Morikawa in that magazine. That's quite a good one. So
in all honesty, what was he like? Because he doesn't look to be a particularly dynamic character.
He was doing a day of media stuff and was probably as you'd expect of someone doing that. But when we started talking and asking a few different questions, he got very engaged and was a really good interview. So, it's
although I must say, a shout out to Karen Harding. Karen Harding is a fabulous golf writer who doesn't get enough credit, and I'll be very interested to read her piece on Empower Golf, which is a fascinating story.
Yeah, it is a story that's been done a few different times in different ways, but someone like that dedicating some time to it is fantastic. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week on Playing from the Tips.